Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're unlocking the fascinating world of child psychology.
It's a huge topic.
It really is. Our mission is to take this stack of incredible sources. We've got everything from academic papers, YouTube transcripts, even a really unique Urdu PDF, and basically unearth the most important, maybe surprising insights into how children develop, how they think, how they interact.
Yeah, get ready to maybe rethink some things you thought you knew about kids.
Definitely. Okay, so the sources we have for this deep dive: child psychology, PDF, developmental psychology, child development, Introduction to Developmental Psychology, Piaget's Stages from Professor Dave Explains.
Great channel.
Yeah, The Genesis and Evolution of Child Psychology, and What's Child Psychology, #9 from Fiction Beast.
Right.
And this one's particularly intriguing, an Urdu book, Bashang Ki Nafsiyat, which just translates to Child Psychology by Dr. Abdul Rauf.
Okay.
The cover itself, it just screams childhood, you know, colorful drawings, sun, house, bike, train.
Captures that world.
Exactly, and it's noted as being distributed for non-commercial dawah or religious propagation purposes from a free online library, kitapostanet.com.
Well, it's remarkable, really, how these, diverse sources let us build such a comprehensive picture of a field that can feel pretty complex sometimes.
Yeah.
We're going to try and move beyond just, definitions and really dig into why child psychology matters so profoundly. Connecting those foundational ideas to, some surprising findings in real-world stuff.
Okay, let's unpack this right from the top then. What exactly is child psychology?
Well, the sources describe it as the scientific study of children's emotional, intellectual, and social development.
Right, from infancy all the way through adolescence.
Exactly. It's about observing how kids interact, with parents, with the world around them.
To understand that whole mental growth journey.
Yeah, that incredible journey. And this leads us to a pretty crucial question. Why is this field so incredibly important, especially today?
Good question. What do the sources say?
They really highlight that it provides a kind of roadmap, for parents, teachers, even policymakers.
A roadmap how?
By understanding developmental milestones, emotional expressions, typical behaviors, social skills at different ages.
Okay.
We can not only celebrate healthy development, but also spot potential challenges early on.
Right. And provide support when it's needed most.
Exactly. It genuinely changes how we interact with and support kids.
It's kind of surprising how recent the field is, though, isn't it?
It really is, relatively speaking.
Charles Darwin apparently kicked off formal child study back in 1840, just meticulously recording his own kids' growth.
Yeah, fascinating. And then early 20th century, you see intelligence tests developing, child guidance clinics popping up.
That's when it really started to solidify as its own discipline.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating there is how quickly that understanding of childhood itself shifted.
Yeah.
Jean Piaget. He's often seen as the founder of modern child psychology.
Right, Piaget. His name comes up a lot.
He really pioneered this.
Yeah.
His work starting way back in the 1920s. It supported this groundbreaking idea that children and adults actually think fundamentally differently.
Not just smaller or less experienced adults.
Exactly. That was the old view. He proposed that kids pass through these distinct qualitative stages of emotional and mental development.
Qualitative meaning the way they think changes, not just how much they know.
Precisely. And that intellectual development is tied up with emotional, social, physical growth. It was a huge shift.
So if kids think so differently, how do psychologists even study these changes over time? It seems tricky.
Well, they use different methods depending on the question. Say you want to track how morality changes over a whole lifetime.
No.
You'd probably use a longitudinal study.
Yeah.
Follow the same group of people as they grow up. Ask them similar questions every few years.
They're tracking the same individuals. Makes sense.
But if you're more curious about when specific moral ideas pop up...
At what age?
Yeah. You might use a cross-sectional study. Compare different age groups all at the same time. Or an age of onset study, looking closely at specific age groups.
Got it. Different tools for different questions about that evolving mind.
Exactly.
This whole discussion about how minds develop, it naturally leads us to, arguably the biggest debate in developmental psychology. Nature versus nurture.
Ah, yes, the classic.
Are we mostly shaped by our genes, our biology, or is it all about, everything else, experiences, social stuff, culture?
Well, what our sources really make clear, and I think this is widely accepted now, is that it's kind of a false dichotomy. It's not one or the other.
It's both.
It's absolutely both. Development is influenced by nature, your genes, and nurture your environment.
And it gets even more complex, right?
Totally. What's really mind-bending is that your environment, your social interactions, they can actually influence which genes get expressed and how they get expressed.
Wow, so it's not just a blueprint.
No, it's a dynamic dance, constantly interacting.
Okay, a concrete example of this. Language learning is a great one, isn't it?
Perfect example.
Noam Chomsky argued that the ability to learn language is innate, like hardwired, almost like a language organ that just grows in us.
Right, which would explain why kids all over the world start talking around the same age, similar to how they hit puberty around the same age.
It feels instinctive.
It does. But, and this is the crucial follow-up, while that ability seems hardwired, the environment can either massively boost it or severely limit it.
Okay, so nature provides the potential.
Exactly. Think of it like a seed. It has the potential to be a tree, but it needs water, sun, good soil. That's the nurture part to actually blossom.
Right. And you see examples like, well, those tragic cases of feral children who never really master language if they miss that early window.
Or even just adults struggling to perfectly mimic accents. It suggests there's this critical time clock for language acquisition.
A powerful illustration of nature needing nurture.
Absolutely.
Okay, speaking of how children think differently, let's dive deeper into Piaget again. His work was truly revolutionary.
It really was.
He didn't just say kids learn more as they grow. He said the quality of their thinking fundamentally changes. They build cognitive abilities through these 4 distinct stages.
Yeah, entirely new ways of understanding the world emerge at each stage.
And it's important to remember, right, that while the exact timing might vary a bit child to child,
generally, all kids go through these stages in the same order. It's predictable in that way.
Okay, so the first stage, sensorimotor, birth to around 2 years old.
A period of just enormous growth, driven entirely by physical interactions.
Right. Infants are using basic reflexes, looking, grabbing, sucking, just exploring through trial and error.
They learn pretty quickly, like shaking a rattle makes noise, action leads to reaction.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The big milestone here is object permanence.
Yes, this is huge. The understanding that things still exist even when you can't see or hear them.
So before that, if you hide a toy,
it's literally gone from their reality, out of sight, out of existence.
Which is why peekaboo is so mind-blowing to them. They genuinely think you've vanished.
Exactly. Developing object permanence is that first big step into knowing the world exists independently of their own perception.
Amazing. Okay, then comes the pre-operational stage, roughly 2 to 7 years.
Right. Now, kids get really good with language, and they start thinking symbolically.
Like pretending a broom is a horse.
Exactly. Or using a block as a phone. Lots of imagination. But they still struggle with complex logic.
And they're very egocentric, right? Thinking everyone sees things exactly like they do.
Yes, which makes things like sharing really difficult. And they struggle with conservation.
Ah, the classic conservation tasks. Like the water glasses.
Precisely. They might genuinely believe a tall, thin glass has more juice than a short, wide one, even if you pour it right in front of them. Perception totally overrides logic at this stage.
It's fascinating. Okay, then things start to click into place, usually around 7 to 11, in the concrete operational stage.
Yeah, now they get conservation. They understand that breaking a candy bar doesn't magically create more candy.
Logic starts kicking in.
Definitely. They develop logical thought, especially good inductive logic. They can go from a specific experience like getting itchy every time they pet a cat to a general principle. I might be allergic to cats.
A huge leap in reasoning.
It is. And finally, for kids 12 and up, we hit the formal operational stage.
This is where thinking gets really sophisticated.
Yeah. Now they can handle abstract, theoretical concepts. They can use logic to solve problems without needing concrete objects right there.
Like algebra or hypothetical questions.
Exactly. They can perform mental operations with abstract terms. Critical thinking, hypothetical reasoning really blossom here.
What I love about Piaget's whole approach is his emphasis on learning by doing.
Yes, that active engagement.
Driven by this innate curiosity, kids often act out ideas in play rather than just, listening to instructions. They learn from the consequences of their actions.
So true. That mess they're making with blocks might actually be some pretty high-level self-directed research.
Aha, exactly. But, okay, these innate abilities, these learning styles, they don't happen in a vacuum, do they?
Not at all.
Another really age-specific, deeply emotional part of development is attachment.
Crucial. Even early thinkers like Freud and Konrad Lorenz talked about infants being sort of programmed to attach to the first caregiver they encounter.
But John Bowlby really expanded on that, didn't he?
Profoundly. He was a British psychologist who argued that babies form this innate genetic bond with their primary caregivers, especially mothers, really for survival.
And he studied those children evacuated during World War II.
Yes, kids raised in institutions. And he found something heartbreaking, that lack of a strong, consistent maternal bond really negatively impacted their intellectual, social, and emotional abilities.
Wow. He even linked it to affectionless psychopathy in some cases.
He did. A severe difficulty forming emotional bonds and showing empathy later on showed how critical that early bond is.
But here's a twist. Harry Harlow's work.
The monkey experiments. Controversial, but incredibly revealing.
He challenged Freud's idea of cupboard love, that attachment is just about getting fed.
Right. Harlow found his infant monkeys overwhelmingly preferred a soft, cuddly cloth surrogate mother.
Even if a wire mother was the one with the milk bottle.
Exactly. It powerfully showed attachment is way more than just physiological needs. It's about security, comfort, having that safe base to explore from.
That idea of a secure base, which leads to a really important question, doesn't it? How do we balance giving that protection with fostering independence?
The million-dollar question for parents. Mary Ainsworth, who worked closely with Bowlby, explored exactly that with her famous strange situation experiment.
Right, observing babies' reactions when their moms left and returned to a room.
She watched one-year-olds and identified 3 main attachment types based on how they handled that separation and reunion.
Okay, what were they?
First, secure attachment. About 70% of the kids in her studies. They were distressed when mom left, but usually okay playing with a stranger. And when mom returned, they sought her out, calmed down quickly, and used her as that secure base to feel better.
That sounds ideal.
It's generally considered the most adaptive. Then there was anxious avoidant attachment, maybe 15%.
How did they react?
They didn't seem to care much when mom left. And when she came back, they often remained distant, emotionally detached, like they were suppressing their need.
Interesting. But maybe still stressed underneath.
Exactly. Studies showed they often had elevated heart rates even without showing outward distress.
Wow. Okay, and the third type?
Anxious resistant attachment, also around 15%. These babies got very anxious when a stranger was there, even with mom present. And when mom returned after leaving,
they were happy.
Not exactly. They often showed anger or resentment, almost punishing the caregiver for leaving.
Yeah.
Difficult to soothe.
So these patterns, they're set pretty early.
They're heavily influenced by how consistently and sensitively a caregiver meets the child's needs. And what's really impactful, as the sources highlight, is that these early patterns can have profound, long-lasting effects on emotional regulation, coping strategies. They can even predict adult relationship patterns decades down the line.
Decades later. That's incredible. Shows just how foundational those first bonds really are.
Absolutely critical.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit now. Let's talk behavior and morality. Aggression, are we born with it or do we learn it?
Another classic debate.
Albert Bandura's Bobo doll experiment from '61 gives a pretty strong clue, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, the Bobo doll. Unforgettable. He showed kids readily imitate aggressive behavior they witness.
Whether they see it in real life or even just on a screen.
His conclusion was powerful. Exposure to aggressive modeling is hardly cathartic. It doesn't provide a release, it teaches and influences behavior.
So maybe a tendency for aggression is innate, but seeing it acted out definitely amplifies it.
That seems to be the takeaway. Nurture heavily shapes the expression of that potential nature.
Okay, and connecting that to the bigger picture of moral development, Lawrence Kohlberg's work comes in.
Right. His extensive 20-year study proposed these 3 progressive stages of how our sense of right and wrong evolves. It's a fascinating journey.
Walk us through them.
Okay, first is pre-conventional morality. This is all about immediate consequences, reward, and punishment.
Like, I'll share my toy if I get praised, or I won't hit because I'll get a timeout.
Exactly. It's very self-focused, about avoiding the stick and getting the carrot.
Okay, stage 2.
Conventional morality. Here, the focus shifts. People start understanding the intention behind actions, and conforming to societal norms and rules becomes important. Being a good person, following the law.
Doing what's expected.
Right. Maintaining social order is key. Most adults operate around this level.
And the third stage.
Post-conventional morality. This is where individuals move beyond just conformity. They develop their own ethical principles.
So standing up for what they believe is morally right, even if it means personal risk or breaking a law they see as unjust.
Precisely. It transcends self-interest and societal pressure. Think of figures like Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., or maybe modern-day whistleblowers. It takes real conviction.
That's a powerful framework. Okay, finally, let's try and tie this all together with this sort of overarching arc of development. Erikson had ideas about this, right?
He did. Erikson believed in what he called the epigenetic principle.
Which means?
Basically, the idea that all living organisms have an inherent purpose to fulfill, a kind of developmental blueprint.
Okay.
And he suggested humans go through 8 distinct psychosocial stages across the lifespan. Each stage presents a kind of crisis or challenge, opposite paths, he called them.
Like a hero's journey, almost.
Kind of, in pursuit of fulfilling that life purpose.
So what are some of these stages, especially in childhood?
Well, it starts right from infancy, learning trust versus mistrust, based on whether needs are reliably met. Then, toddlers grapple with autonomy versus shame and doubt as they try to do things for themselves.
Like wanting to dress themselves, even if it takes forever?
Exactly. Then preschoolers, maybe 3 to 6, explore initiative versus guilt planning activities, making up games. School-age kids, 6 to 12, focus on industry versus inferiority mastering skills, comparing themselves to peers.
And adolescence, that must be a big one.
Huge. Ego identity versus role confusion, figuring out who am I, where do I fit in?
And it doesn't stop after childhood, does it?
Not according to Erikson. Adulthood brings intimacy versus isolation, forming close relationships. Then generativity versus stagnation, contributing to the next generation, finding purpose in work or family. And finally, in later life, ego integrity versus despair, looking back with acceptance or regret.
Wow. It really puts development in a lifelong perspective.
It does, and it makes you think, how do we navigate these universal hurdles? Which path do we end up choosing at each fork in the road?
This really sums up so much of what child psychology reveals, doesn't it? Children's minds, their psyches, are just fundamentally different from adults.
Vastly different. We're born with these age-specific traits, these amazing abilities, like that innate capacity for language or that deep drive to learn by doing.
Yeah, while adults can learn well by listening or reading, kids often learn faster and deeper through action, through play.
But crucially, as we keep saying, our development is always this dynamic, intricate mix of nature and nurture.
Our biology unfolding within the context of our culture, our families, our interactions.
Always interacting.
So, after digging into all this Piaget's stages, the power of attachment, how morality develops, Erikson's life stages, you might be left with a pretty provocative thought.
Okay.
If our earliest experiences, those developmental milestones, shape so much of who we become, our relationships, how we cope, maybe even our sense of purpose, how might a deeper, more empathetic understanding of these processes, how might that fundamentally change the way you approach things? Education, parenting, maybe even your own adult relationships, looking back or looking forward.
That's a powerful question to sit with. And it's not just academic, is it? Consider the statistics. Something like 10 to 20% of children experience a mental health disorder at any given time.
That's a high number.
It is. And we know there are identified protective factors and risk factors, everything from a child's basic temperament to family income to community support.
Right.
So this knowledge, it isn't just earskin. It's really a powerful invitation for all of us to think about what kinds of nurturing environments truly foster resilience, foster optimal development for the next generation.
What kind of environment are you helping to create?